eat 80% full. They eat until they are 80% full, and it might be why they outlive everyone else. In Okinawa, Japan, one of the most concentrated populations of centenarians on Earth follows a cultural practice called harahachi-bu, which translates roughly to eat until you are 80% full. Researchers studying blue zones, the geographic regions with the highest concentrations of people living past 100, found this habit consistently present among the longest-lived populations on the planet. But here is what makes it genuinely shocking. Caloric restriction does not just slow weight gain, it actively slows cellular aging at the molecular level. Studies published in Nature found that reducing calorie intake triggers a biological repair mode inside cells, activating longevity proteins called sirtuins that protect DNA from damage. The real danger for most people is the opposite pattern, chronic overeating, which keeps the body in a constant state of metabolic stress, accelerating inflammation, and aging simultaneously. The oldest people alive are not eating less because they have to. They are living longer because they do. The purpose effect. Their sense of purpose is measured in extra years of life. In Japanese culture, this concept is called ikigai, meaning a reason to wake up in the morning. And researchers have found it is not just a philosophy, but a measurable biological force. A study published in Psychological Science tracked over 6,000 adults and found that having a strong sense of life purpose was associated with significantly lower mortality risk across all age groups. But here's the surprising part. The effect was not small. People with a clear sense of purpose lived on average 7 years longer than those without one. Scientists believe purpose reduces chronic stress hormones, lowers systemic inflammation, and keeps the brain structurally healthier over time. In Sardinia, Costa Rica, and Okinawa alike, the oldest living people do not retire from meaning. They remain embedded in family roles, community duties, and daily responsibilities well into their 90s. Purpose, it turns out, is not a luxury. It is a biological requirement for a long life. Move without gym. The oldest people on Earth move constantly, but almost never exercise. This distinction is one of the most counterintuitive findings in longevity research. Blue Zone centenarians do not go to gyms or follow structured workout programs. Instead, they walk everywhere, tend gardens, knead bread by hand, climb hillsides to visit neighbors, and carry groceries on foot. Researchers at the National Institute on Aging found that this pattern of low-intensity, continuous movement throughout the day produces better long-term health outcomes than intense exercise sessions followed by hours of sitting. This is where it gets interesting. Natural movement keeps inflammatory markers chronically low, maintains joint flexibility, supports cardiovascular function, and preserves muscle mass without the injury risk of high-impact exercise. The real danger modern life presents is not laziness, but engineered stillness, where cars, elevators, and desk jobs have removed the natural movement patterns that kept human biology functional for thousands of years. Social cells. Their social lives are protecting their cells at the genetic level. Sardinian men living in the mountainous villages of the Barbagia region have the highest concentration of male centenarians anywhere on the planet, and researchers believe deep social integration is a primary driver. But the science goes far deeper than simple happiness. A landmark study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that social isolation accelerates a biological aging process called telomere shortening, the erosion of protective caps on your DNA that determines how fast your cells age. This is where it gets remarkable. Strong social bonds were shown to slow this erosion measurably, essentially preserving genetic youth at the cellular level. People in blue zones do not schedule social time. It is woven into the fabric of daily life through communal meals, religious gatherings, neighborhood rituals, and multi-generational households where elders remain central figures rather than isolated members. The wine secrets. They drink wine in ways that most longevity researchers did not expect to find beneficial. In Sardinia specifically, centenarians drink a dark, antioxidant-rich red wine called Canonau in small, consistent amounts, almost always with food, and always in company. But here's the problem with how most people interpret this finding. The benefit does not come from alcohol alone. Canonau wine contains 2 to 3 times the flavonoid and polyphenol content of most commercial red wines, compounds that research published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition linked to reduced cardiovascular inflammation and improved arterial flexibility. The real danger is misapplying this finding by consuming alcohol heavily or in isolation, which produces the opposite biological effect. Sardinian centenarians drink 1 small glass with a meal surrounded by people. The compound effect of the antioxidants, the social bonding, the slow eating pace, and the daily ritual creates a biological environment that is far more than the sum of its individual parts. Stress reset. Their relationship with stress is biologically different from most modern adults. Centenarians in every blue zone on Earth share one measurable characteristic that researchers consistently find surprising. They experience stress like everyone else, but they have daily rituals that discharge it before it becomes chronic. In Okinawa, elders practice daily quiet reflection. In Sardinia, afternoon rest is culturally protected. In Loma Linda, California, the Seventh-day Adventist community observes a weekly day of complete rest from sunset Friday to sunset Saturday. Research from the University of California found that chronic unresolved stress accelerates telomere shortening at a rate comparable to smoking, essentially aging cells decades faster than biological time should allow. But here is what the data actually shows. It is not the absence of stress that protects these populations. It is the consistent, daily, culturally embedded practice of releasing it before it compounds into the chronic low-grade inflammation that drives most age-related diseases. Plants first. Plants dominate every plate of every centenarian population ever studied. This is not a modern nutritional opinion. It is one of the most consistent findings across every blue zone investigated over 20 years of research. Beans, lentils, whole grains, and seasonal vegetables form the foundation of diets in Okinawa, Sardinia, Nicoya, Ikaria, and Loma Linda alike. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that plant-based dietary patterns were associated with significantly reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, cancer, and all-cause mortality in long-lived populations. But here is the detail most people overlook. These populations are not strictly vegetarian. They eat small amounts of meat, fish, or dairy occasionally, sometimes only a few times per month. The real driver of their longevity diet is not what they exclude, but what dominates every meal. Fiber-rich plants that feed beneficial gut bacteria, reduce chronic inflammation, and keep metabolic function operating efficiently well into old age. Faith and lifespan. Faith and belonging to something larger than yourself extends measurable lifespan. This finding makes some researchers uncomfortable because it sits outside traditional medical frameworks, but the data is too consistent to ignore. A study published in JAMA Internal Medicine tracking over 75,000 women over 16 years found that those who attended religious services more than once per week had a 33% lower risk of dying during the study period compared to those who never attended. The effect held even after controlling for social factors. Scientists believe the mechanism involves a combination of stress reduction, community bonding, behavioral consistency, and the psychological benefit of having a coherent worldview that provides meaning during difficult life events. In every blue zone, some form of faith community or spiritual practice is present among the oldest living members. The real danger is dismissing this as coincidence when the biological effects of belonging, of shared ritual, of feeling held by something beyond daily life are measurable, consistent, and powerful.